This podcast is made possible in part by Patreon support, and I'd like to say thank you to our newest patron, Alexa. So Alexa just joined at the $3 a month plus alpha tier. If you want to be as incredible as Alexa and all the other wonderful patrons, by the way, we just reached $100 per month, and that's really, really helpful. So if you want to help and make sure that I can keep bringing you content like this, go over to JapanKyo.com/Patreon. You can join for as little as $1 a month. I would be extremely grateful. Go check that out. And I think it's time to get to the episode. The marketing for this was, will Japanese people who only eat 2.8 kilograms of cheese per year be able to handle the ultra cheese?
It's so much cheese!
Welcome to Ichimon Japan. I'm Tony.
And I'm Ryan.
And while Ichimon means one question in every episode on the podcast, we ask one question about Japan. Today's question is, why are these things so expensive in Japan? So we're talking about probably a few things that, people that are not from Japan often, or maybe I should say people that are especially from the U.S., because we are very U.S. Centric. That's our perspective because we're both from the U.S. But, when we go to Japan or first went, we discovered these things. We might have thought, like, why are these so expensive? But there are reasons, and we'll talk about that. But I do want to say that for the most part, I think Japan is not as expensive as many people might assume or think.
Yeah.
Right?
There's also some things that are surprisingly much less expensive in Japan.
Yeah.
Like, I think just rent for apartments is way lower here than in America.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, especially once you're out of the city, but even within the city
It's
my experience.
livable.
Yeah. My experience is that they do tend to be quite livable. Now, granted, maybe you get into the whole debate of like, yeah, but Japanese apartments tend to be smaller, this and that. Okay, maybe like you can get into the whole like nuance kind of thing. But at least in my experience and from what I've seen, both like in Osaka, in Kobe, and from what I've heard from my friends living in other places, it tends to be quite affordable, especially when compared to a lot of the places that I've seen in the US. So, yeah. Especially, if you get into the rural areas, I'm sure in like Ishikawa, it tends to be pretty affordable.
Yeah, where I'm at now is probably about the same, if not slightly bigger than my apartment when I lived in Hawaii. And it's, I think, less than 1/3 the cost.
It doesn't surprise me because we're talking about Hawaii, which is one of the most, expensive places in the US. So unfortunately, and that is where I live, but it is what it is. So for the most part, Japan is pretty affordable, I would say. And that I would go as far as to say is that generally what you earn versus the cost of living is also pretty reasonable, So, but that being said, especially for, people from outside Japan, when you go there, sometimes you hear about some random things that are like absurdly expensive, right? Like, and you go like, why are these things so expensive in Japan? Especially sometimes when these same things are like much, much, much cheaper in your country of origin. So
movie theater tickets.
Oh, movie theater tickets. That is a good one that I didn't even think of. Yeah, Japan.
Actually, I don't know if they still count because of deflation here. They've pretty much stayed the same price for the last 10, 15 years, but everywhere else went up, so they're kind of normal now.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I mean, when I first started going to Japan, it was, I don't know, like double the price in Japan.
Yeah, it was because America is famous for being kind of expensive, and then you see Japan is like over double. But now Japan's pretty much just the same as America. Yeah,
because exactly the movie tickets in the US have kind of doubled over the past, I don't know, like 15 years.
But the concessions here are cheaper, so it ends up being a cheaper experience overall.
Good point. Yes. That's still the case. Yeah. They nickel and dime you. Not even they $1 and $5 you in American US theaters.
Also late. We could have done Disneyland. Well, that's cheap though.
In Japan?
That's a fun one because like every person who lives here is like, oh, Disneyland's so expensive, and then I look the price up and I'm like, dude, it's like less than half the American cost.
Jeez, I haven't been to the Japanese Disneyland, so I wasn't sure about the prices.
It's like
um,
7,000 yen or something.
which I mean, yeah, that's not insignificant, but that doesn't
It's not,
sound
yeah,
like
but
that much to me, like compared to what I've paid in Disney World or something like that.
yeah, that's like 120 up.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, yeah. So yeah, I didn't even think about those, but yeah, there's definitely some price differences there. I came up with three specific ones. One was totally inspired by the conversation we were having off air, and we'll talk about that in the second half. But it's spoiler alert, it's pizza. So we're gonna talk about delivery pizza in the second half of the show. But first, let's talk about something that is very much a I guess you would say a Japanese thing, even though it originated outside of Japan in a way. But randoseru. So,
Which of course comes from the English word randoseru. Randoseru?
yeah. I was wearing my
Randoseru.
randoseru. Yeah, my randoseru. Um, no, so the katakana is randoseru, but okay, so basically randoseru are these backpacks that are commonly worn by Japanese elementary school students. They are rather squarish and bulky,
Yeah, they
and
got like one curved side, but yeah.
yeah. So they're I don't know what would be a. I think most people probably have seen them, but they're almost like big American classic mailboxes on your back or something like that.
That's where it comes from.
Which
Back in
just
the 30s, they just strapped a mailbox to their back and went to school.
yeah. An American soldier was over there and said, like, here, put one of these on your back, kid. And then, they refined it over the years. But yeah, it's this kind of like bulky, big backpack. Typically, they were made out of leather, but nowadays they also use synthetic leather. But just about every elementary school will have children wearing these. That's just the default backpack for elementary school students in Japan. And
I think I have a good way to introduce the price of this. Is that if that's what we're going to go to?
Yeah, well, go ahead.
So this was recent, maybe like a month or two ago, because so the school year in Japan starts in beginning of April. So back to school sales start like March. And I was with my girlfriend walking through like a shopping mall area, and I had not known the price of these, and we saw them on sale.
Yep.
And at the exact same moment, she was surprised how cheap they were when I was surprised how expensive they were, because they were like $350 or something there.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people from outside of Japan, that don't grow up in Japan and don't know about this, they have that moment at one point, because around, I don't know, February maybe, or maybe even March, or maybe, I don't know, January.
It might have been
like
late February when this happened.
Like you see at the stores, you see the commercials for these. There's this one that's like Tenshi no Hane. It's like ran doseru ga te tenshi no hane. Like, oh my god, it's like stuck in my head. But you see these all over the place because it's back to school season in Japan, right? It starts in April, so they got to start a couple months before. And then you start to see the prices, and you go like, "What the like? These things are ridiculous."
For me, a $300 backpack was insane.
Yeah.
But from what people who live here expect, that's a pretty dang good price.
Yeah. So, of course, I did do some research into this. The average seems to be up higher than that. So your girlfriend was absolutely correct. That is on the cheaper side. The average is closer to like 50,000, 60,000 upwards, maybe 50 to 65. So that would be roughly the equivalent. Yeah. So like $500 US, $600 US, maybe a bit more, especially with the current exchange rate. It's actually closer to like $700 US. And this is, again, a backpack for elementary school students. Like, my mom would not have spent $600 on a backpack for me when I was like 6 years old.
I was a kid, so I don't remember. And inflation has happened, but I had I'm gonna guess like $20 to $30 backpacks in elementary school.
Yeah, I do not remember. It's been a long time, and I wasn't the one spending the money, so why the heck would I care,
Yeah.
right? But just to illustrate, like, when I was in high school and I had some, deciding power over what I wanted, I just decided to go with a plain old black base level JanSport backpack. It didn't even have like the leather bottom. I think it was just like the bottom rung level, and I used that for like 4 years. And I just checked on Amazon. I think those cost like $60, and those have a
I remember
lifetime
them
warranty.
being sold at Costco for like 25 or something when
Yeah,
I was in high
they can
school.
be really cheap. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, on sale season, you can get them for even cheaper than that. So, $40, $50, and they have a lifetime warranty, and they last years and years. I mean, lifetime warranty is a bit misleading. I think sometimes, it's actually more like 25 years, but they call it lifetime. But it is what it is. It's still going to last you 6 years, 4 years, as
I
long
want
as
to be
you're
the
not.
guy who like 24 years in is like, I want a refund. The zipper broke.
Yeah. So,
I've been in
unless
high
you
school a long time.
yeah, it's like it's time for my brand new. But I think the thing that they do is that they'll repair it. They won't actually give you a new one. I think that's how they do it. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know JanSport. A lot of these other companies, they have similar models, where they'll promise a lifetime warranty, and somehow they do it in a way that it is still financially viable for them to offer that. But the point remains that these backpacks, will last you 4 years. So for me and for many other people, when you see a price tag of the equivalent of $600, $700, sometimes even more on a backpack for elementary school students, again, your
Yeah, they
mind
go
is
over
just
1,000.
blown. Yeah, they do go over 1,000. Yeah, your mind is absolutely blown. So, okay, so what is the reasoning behind this? So when you ask a Japanese person that is not looked into this at all, like your average Japanese person, what do they tell you, Ryan?
They're really high quality and they last you all 6 years. I gotta point out real quick, like I remember being a kid and being happy to get a new backpack every year because usually it had
Yeah,
like some character.
yeah.
So I don't think Japanese kids would be different. I think they would also like to get a new thing every year instead of one plain thing they keep forever.
I mean, I agree that many kids would certainly be no different from an American kid. Absolutely. So yes, that is the thing that people tend to tell you. The number one thing is that they're really well built, and of course they're going to last 6 years, even while being used by children of that age range, where they're going to be super rough on the pack. And for the most part, if you're buying one that costs that much, I would say that yes, they do tend to last. In fact, they outlast the kid. They're going to stay in the home probably unless you donate it somewhere. And they're just going to be there not being used, or maybe there's some kind of storage container, or I don't know. But for the most part, once you go to junior high, you're not going to use it anymore. So they're just going to stay there, even though it's still a perfectly usable backpack. So, okay. So let's just go with that. All right. So
Yeah,
we're talking about,
no one here is disputing their good quality.
yes. So I would say absolutely, if you're paying that much for one, unless it's some kind of scammy company, you are paying for something that is really well built. It might even be using like actual leather, actual like metal, and maybe even have at least some element of like a person actually hand making it. Maybe not 100%, but there are craftspeople that specialize in this kind of stuff. So absolutely well designed for what it is. There have been improvements to it, blah blah blah. So yes, but the ultimate question is, like, does it have to be that expensive? Do we really need it to be that way? Right?
Like, heck no. You can get like high quality, top grade normal backpacks for much, 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 much less that will also last you years.
Yes.
As I
yes,
mentioned
yes.
casually before we were recording this, I've been using the same, like, I am a teacher, so not a student, but I still use a backpack to carry my stuff. And I've been using the same one for 5 years, which cost me less than $100, and it's still going fine.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I have at least one pack that I've been using for, I think, 10 years, if not a little bit more. But so, okay, so it doesn't have to be this way, obviously, but the argument is, of course, tradition, and it's really well built. Okay, so fine, it's well built, but again, does it have to be that way? No. Traditions, like, okay, yes, traditions are nice, but we have, like, there are actual stories. This does happen where families can't really afford one, right? If it costs that much. And
They're
so then
insane.
yeah, so you end up with, I think it was a place in Fukui Prefecture that would give randoseru to certain students. There's another place that I was reading about in an NHK World article that they recycled randoseru. So people would donate their old ones to give it to, the new kids. I mean, if that was a system that was being used across the country and like really widespread use, maybe this is actually a wonderful thing. It's actually very, ecologically friendly and this and that. But I think this is actually rather rare, and maybe, it's not like, it's probably not
It's
something
not the
that
norm.
was, yeah, absolutely. So again, in the same NHK World article, there was a graph that was showing how since 2006, the price of these randoseru has basically doubled. So the average cost. And I think this article was like 2019 or 2020. So actually the price has increased since then, because I checked the average cost like now, and I think that it seemed like there was a slight difference. So maybe it's increased even a little bit more since that article. But the point is that it's basically double now what it was about 16, 17 years ago. So why has it been increasing so much? So one
Because
thing that this
keep paying it.
Well, that is number one. Yes, absolutely. But the NHK World article says that now we're in this situation where we have less kids, more old people. These single child homes now have 6 possible people that might buy them an overpriced backpack. So needlessly overpriced for them. I think that maybe some of these are super high quality and they deserve that amount of money. But the ultimate question is, does a 5-year-old need this kind of backpack, right? No. So now you have 4 grandparents, two parents, all that have the disposable income potentially to buy their one child a really, really nice backpack. And now you have these grandparents that are all saying like, no, I want to be the one that buys little Taro his super wonderful backpack. No, I want to be the one. No, I want to be the one, because that's the thing that happens in Japan. The grandparents really want to buy the pack for them, right?
It is set up like as a rite of passage for kids, like
Yes.
entering the school system to get one of these.
Yep. So again, what the NHK World lays out is the situation where we have more people willing to pay more for less kids, which opens, this possibility for these businesses to raise prices and the common person to not really have any say in the influence in this. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't cheaper randoseru. Like I was checking on Amazon, like I was able to find like ones under, Ichimon, so under $100. In the like Ryan was saying, there were some, around $300 on sale. So you can find cheaper ones. You can also find some super expensive ones that are like $1,000 and more. Those are probably like basically like the designer version.
I just know some company is going to like find this research and just like lean into it heavier and like start an advertising campaign of like, oh, if you can't decide who should buy it, have everyone pool together and get the Randoseru Deluxe. Only Gojuman.
Yeah. It's like, look, everybody's happy now. We all win. You see?
And now everyone gets to donate an overpriced amount of money towards a bag.
Yeah. Like there's this thing that happens, I think just about every year. I always see this pop up in the past few years, but there's a old Japanese manga called Tiger Mask. And then like, this is like a wrestler, right? That inspired an actual, I think, Tiger Mask wrestler in real wrestling in Japan. But there's this thing that happens where, because Tiger Mask was an orphan. So what happens is an anonymous donor will donate randoseru to some place, maybe like an orphanage or something, I don't know, like to needy kids. Like donate a bunch of randoseru on Christmas every year. And it's not necessarily the same person. Like this will pop up in different prefectures. Some like anonymous person will leave a note and sign it like Tiger Mask and say like, here's a bunch of randoseru for the kids. So, I mean, I don't know if they're buying the $1,000 ones, probably not, but anyway, the thing is that there's no like law or anything, right, that says like all kids have to have randoseru. I don't know how common it is for an elementary school to say that all the kids have to have randoseru as part of the school rules, uniform or whatever. But like, even if they don't have to, like the thing is that they there would be a peer pressure element, right? Like if everybody has to wear the
Yeah.
Randoseru, or if everybody does wear it, the one kid that wears the something else, the black JanSport, for example, they're going to stick out and it's uncomfortable. So it's created this, situation where it's like, oh, everybody else is doing it, so I have to do it, even though we don't really, really have to do it. So
it reminds me of like the school club thing where there's not actually a rule that you have to join clubs, but everyone
yeah,
thinks there is.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it kind of looks bad if you don't, and you might be kind of peer pressured, and the teachers will be kind of unhappy that you do it. There's all kind of factors that kind of pressure kids into being in clubs, even if they don't really want to. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, there's also like adult Randoseru. They've kind of become more popular since like 2014, I think, when Zoe Deschanel was apparently wearing one, and that kind of exploded the popularity or something. I don't know if that's still the case right now in 2022.
I've never
But
seen an adult with one.
yeah,
And
thank
as
you.
it's
Yes,
specifically made for elementary school students, I think you would look kind of funny with one.
yes. Thank you. Yeah, I've never seen a Japanese adult wear one in the street in any of my visits, and I've never heard it from a friend. I saw this person or anything. So it seems like it's pretty uncommon, but a friend of mine did send me a link when I was talking to her about this, and she said, here's a link to one of these makers, Tsuchiya Kaban. I guess they're pretty well known for making bags and randoseru. They were selling like these adult versions for 15 man in. So basically the equivalent of $1,500 if you just chop off the 2 zeros, but with the current exchange rate, it's actually quite a bit more. So pretty pricey. You're basically buying a designer bag for that price. And it's, if that's what you want, that's your fashion thing. No problem with that. That's a totally different thing. You're an adult making your own decision, but what, that's just an interesting thing that exists. So yeah, there's no like rule, but basically every elementary school kid in most Japanese public schools is going to be wearing these, and parents just have to fork it over because that's just kind of, what everybody does. Even though, again, I think there's way more efficient ways to do the backpack thing for kids that wouldn't be this big financial burden, when your kid is like 5-6 years old entering, first grade. So yes, and not to like disparage the craftsmanship and all that goes into these backpacks. They're well made and all that. That's not the issue. Again, just to be clear. So, but that is the Randoseru. Why is it so expensive? Well, because apparently grandparents have too much money to spend, and there's not enough kids going around.
And I think people just got used to it being that price point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it actually might be hard for a company to sell them at like 4,000 yen because people might just assume it's like cheap and poorly made and they don't want it.
Yeah. I mean, it's much harder to make a decent profit on that kind of big, bulky, complex bag than it is on a much simpler, well stitched but pure fabric kind of design, like a more standard backpack. So it's just more complex to make that. It's more costly. More things go into that. So it's inevitable
not by that degree, but it is still more.
Yeah, exactly. Not by that degree, exactly. And just in case anybody's wondering, Randoseru apparently comes from the Dutch ransel. I doubt that's how it's pronounced. And it has its roots back in the late Edo period, when apparently the Japanese military kind of adopted it from I guess they were looking at the Dutch military. So it's a military style bag. For a while, I think it was mostly or all fabric. But I don't know exactly when that switch happened, but it started being used as a school bag around 1885 when Gakushuin, the school for like the nobility and the elite, started using it. And then in 1887, the prince, which became Emperor Taisho, used it in a photo or something. Ito Hirobumi, the first prime minister, gave it to him. And then that kind of became like the thing that was, this is the ideal backpack, right? But it was too expensive. And then, so it wasn't really until post-war Japan when it became like a thing for everybody to use one, because up until then it was just kind of too pricey and too much. So yeah. That is the short history of the Randoseru. So let's cover the next topic briefly, and then we'll take a quick commercial break. But the next topic that often comes up when somebody's visiting Japan or a foreigner moves to Japan, something that they spot and they're sometimes surprised by how expensive it is fruit. So Japan is famous for having like absurdly expensive fruit. And some of that is 100% true, but that does not mean that there is not affordable fruit, right?
Yeah, they have expensive designer silly fruit, and then they have like normal fruit.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, you will see this on like Sora News 24 and all these like, kind of websites. It's like, look at this $300 melon. And yes, those do exist. But, I lived in Japan for, I don't know, like 4 years. I still visit, but typically when I go, I might buy some bananas, some oranges, or when I was living there, and it was totally fine. Like it wasn't like, I don't remember it ever being like crazy expensive. But
some things might be a little more expensive if they're imported, but not unreasonable. We're talking like
exactly
like 100 or 200 yen more.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would make fruit smoothies and stuff, and it wasn't like, oh my god, today I'm gonna spend $100 because I'm gonna make a fruit smoothie.
You can have your Randoseru, or you can have your fruit smoothie. But only the one.
It's like, look, all right, I'm gonna buy this backpack for you. It's gonna last you 6 years, or you could have 6 fruit smoothies. When you put it that way, the Randoseru is a deal, huh? But my point was that, like you said, there are these designer fruits, basically, right? That they are, raised in these tiny, like locally owned farms, and maybe like the farmers like massaging these peaches, and they have to be perfectly round, and they have to be, only above a certain like circumference, and color, and they can only be sold for a very small window because they have to be at the perfect ripeness in order to get this amount of money per peach or per grape bushel or whatever it is. And these are generally for gifts, right? This is usually not something you're going to buy for yourself unless you really are in a mood to splurge on yourself.
They usually come in like a fancy box or case or something too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now that's not to say that they don't taste really good. Like I think I've had maybe not like top tier stuff, but a couple things here or there, which were like, locally grown, really good stuff. And they do taste quite good. I've had some of those. So I can only imagine that, some of this top tier will be really good, but also there's the law of diminishing returns. So just because you pay like 100 times more for a peach, it doesn't mean that it will taste 100 times better. Right. But
about like, 2% better.
Yeah. You get that with anything, right? Like just because you paid 1,000,000 times more for a camera doesn't mean that it'll be 1,000,000 times better. But so it is what it is. It's just this kind of things that like they'll be at the high end department stores. You'll see this perfectly arranged, like peaches and I don't know, like the watermelons. I don't know, like all these fruit, right? That are like absurdly expensive. And it's, the kind of thing that you take a picture of and you post on Instagram because it's just so funny. But no, that is not what most people in Japan are eating on a daily basis. That is just one thing. In order to do this, it does cost more to make these fruits. Japan already has less land to produce, agriculture in general. 90% is mountains. It's really hard to, produce the same amount per acre than in like the US, for example. So there are factors that go into it, but these are specifically luxury items, and that's why they are, sold in this way. So
I think it just becomes like a big issue because they're particularly sold in like touristy areas.
Yep. Yes.
Which is where usually visitors go, because like where I live, I never see these things. I have seen them in my life, but not like where I live now.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that maybe if you go to like whatever the top tier supermarket, because they are like fancy supermarkets, right? You go to whatever that top tier one is or department store in your nearest big city, then you might come across some of that. But for the most part, you're probably going to see that in like big cities like Tokyo, maybe like in a Ginza kind of place where it's already like supposed to be the high class, super expensive stuff.
The Ginza fruit market where everything costs on one end.
Yeah. It's all got, gold plating on it. But
they actually do that. Have you had the golden ice cream?
Oh, I saw an ad for it. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to have it.
That's famous in Ishikawa, actually.
Oh, really? Okay. I
Yeah.
think I think I saw an ad for that in Fukuoka, but I did get a chance to try it.
If they actually
Um,
put like a golden
like
covering, I guess, really, really thin.
flakes, whatever. What I
Yeah,
forget
yeah,
what that's
yeah.
called.
On
But
like
yeah,
the most famous one is ice cream, but you can put it on like other stuff, I guess.
yeah. And it does nothing to the taste, right?
Yeah, it has no impact on the taste. It just makes
Yeah,
it cost more money.
yeah. Let me give you more money for really no reason at all. But yeah, the other factor that goes into this is the fact that if you're talking about these fancy schmancy places in Tokyo, like they also have to pay for the cost that it takes to transport these fruit, like from wherever they're grown, because these are like locally grown, like Miyazaki, I don't know, like peaches or something, right? Like some faraway prefecture maybe that has to make it to Tokyo in a certain amount of time so that it's, still at the perfect ripeness, and they can sell it at these, high prices. So you've got that extra factor going on for Tokyo. But if you're in a place like Ishikawa, where apparently the carrots are just absolutely amazing, right?
And the tomatoes, man.
It's a little bit of a exaggeration, but right, the kids just old inside joke here. But yeah, the kids told you the carrots are very good here. Yeah. So, but yeah, if you're in a more agricultural kind of place, you're going to be able to get fruit for a lot cheaper, probably, because there's just that cost for transportation is just not as much, right? It's just there. So yeah, so that's a little bit misleading. Yes, that does exist, but it's also kind of misleading. And there is a reason for why those crazy expensive ones are expensive. Also, I'm sure there's a little bit of like, okay, we can charge more. The profit margin can be bigger because that's how it works with luxury items. The profit margin is just bigger. So yeah, that's fruit and Randoseru. We will come back with what I think is kind of the highlight for me of this. It's something that I've been wondering for years and years and years. Why the heck is Japanese delivery pizza so expensive? Hey guys, so just a couple quick things. So first of all, there's actually a huge bonus portion of this conversation that Ryan and I had, and that, well, didn't make it into the episode. We recorded it after this one was done. It's a lot of interesting information about some more food-related stuff. In the second part of this episode, we're going to be talking about pizza, so our conversation just kind of went from there. And so if you're curious about that, well, you got to join the Patreon. So you can listen to that extra chunk of conversation for as little as $1 a month, JapanKyo.com/Patreon. Also, if you haven't checked out the other podcast that I do, it's called Japan Station. In the latest episode, I talked to Mel Oak, a translator and localizer of video games, and we had a really, really interesting conversation. So go check out the link in the show notes or go to japanstationpodcast.com or look it up in your podcast app of choice. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. All that stuff helps immensely. And by the way, the YouTube for JapanKyo, where all these episodes just go up automatically, has been doing very well. So if you're listening over there, thank you so much. Drop a like and leave a comment, I guess. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. So let's get back into the rest of the episode and talk about pizza. All right, it's pizza time. Okay, so I think, again, this I will say from the perspective of an American. All right, America. All right. So when you go to Japan, and let's just say you live in Japan, right? You get there, you're an English teacher, whatever the case it is, you get there, you're in your apartment. Eventually, much like in many other places of the world, you do get delivery pizza flyers, right, Ryan?
Oh yeah. I kind of forgot about that.
You do get them in your mailbox. Those junk mail, pizza delivery flyers, Domino's or whatever it is, local brands. You get them and you go, oh my goodness, pizza. I love pizza. Maybe I'll get delivery pizza. I wonder what the price is. And then you go, I'm never going to get delivery pizza.
Can I put out a weird tangent here? So there's one of the bigger changes called, I don't know if it's supposed to be, I think it's Pizza La, but I used to call it Pizza LA because I had no idea. I have never had their pizza once in my life, but when I lived in Osaka, occasionally I would order Pizza Hut, and every time I ordered Pizza Hut, within 2 days, I would get a flyer from Pizza La.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like they were spying on me or something. I can't imagine Pizza Hut was sharing with their competitor that I ordered pizza.
Yeah.
But like I never got one once. I ordered my first pizza 2 days later, Pizza La. and that pretty much continued the whole time I lived there.
Yeah. I mean, I think I ordered like once or twice when I was living in Japan. I don't remember what the chain was. It might have been a really small chain, but it was probably
Yep.
it was a little cheaper than what we're going to be talking about. Otherwise, I probably
Yeah.
would not have done it.
Where I live now,
But
we have a local chain, which hopefully we can go over their funny pricing because
yes, yes,
they have
yes.
free delivery, technically.
Yeah. All right. So the point is, just to make it really, really clear here, is delivery pizza in Japan is absurdly expensive, sometimes double or more the price of what you would get in the US. Often double or more the price. It's not rare at all to see double or more. And the thing is that, like, if you go to a restaurant in Japan, it's about half the price, if not much, much, much
Oh,
less.
much less.
Yeah. Well, if you go to like a fancy pizza place, it might be about half
Okay,
the
maybe,
price.
yeah.
But if you go to like a cheap place, like you were saying before we recorded, Gusto, like a family restaurant kind of place, cheap place, you might be talking about 600 yen. So we're talking about like 80% the price of a delivery pizza.
It's
80%
basically
less.
the same pizza.
Yeah. Okay. So it depends, but
I guess it depends on the place.
yeah, it's definitely not the equivalent of that percentage difference. Like, so
It probably corresponds to the medium rather than the large, which is usually what I would order.
yeah. That is
But
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, with
So
that price, you could literally order 3 and it would still cost less.
yes. So to summarize here, we're talking about smaller pizzas, even like a large and a large in the US and Japan, smaller in Japan by a
Yeah.
couple centimeters at least.
It's a bit like a one size downgrade. Like I think the large here is like a medium in the US.
Roughly, yeah. And you're paying double or more if you're talking about delivery pizza. And yet, when you go to a restaurant or you're buying frozen pizza from the supermarket, you're not seeing that same ridiculous markup.
Yeah,
So
it's just like normal.
yeah. So that is one of the things which I think just about every American that likes pizza, like, probably wonders, like, what is wrong with this system? Like, how can this happen? Why is it happening? Is there a reason? And I did a little bit of investigating, and of course we can do a little bit of speculating as well. But I just want to go over here some concrete examples because we were talking about this, like a few weeks ago, me and Ryan, because he got a flyer and he was looking at it and he was telling me the prices and it reminded me of this. So please, Ryan, go ahead, explain what your pizza flyer says.
So one thing I noticed, luckily for me, I like cheese pizza the best, and cheese pizza is the only one that's not horrendously overpriced, which kind of got me curious. So I started comparing just like the basic large cheese pizza to the minimal topping like set pizza, because some of them you can add toppings individually, and it's kind of absurd. So I guess to not get in trouble, I'll leave these pizza chains nameless. But one of them, their large size cheese only pizza is 1,820 yen. So easy rounding, roughly $18, which that's like a normal pizza price, right?
Yeah, that's not bad. I asked my friends in Florida. Some person, one of them told me that the average price for a large was $15. I just checked before we recorded. Pizza Hut here in Hawaii, a large with one topping was $18.99.
Okay, so yeah, pretty much right there. However, the smallest upgrade I could find was called the Italiana, which describes as tappuri cheese, but the cheese pizza also has tappuri cheese, and fresh tomato. So they're just adding a tomato. It costs 3,660 yen.
So double for a tomato.
So yeah, it's more than double because it was 1820, but it's increasing by 1840 to add a cut tomato to your pizza.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
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 It's pretty much the same story. Like if you find like just plus pepperoni, it suddenly jumps from under 2,000 to over 3,000.
Yeah.
So, some of the pizzas have like a crap load of toppings, so I'm kind of intentionally avoiding those. But
yeah. But
yeah, it looks like for whatever reason, the second you get to like what is a real pizza in people's mind, the price skyrockets. But if you get the basic one, it's not that bad. Which
is utterly confusing because some of the argument for Japan having more expensive pizzas, and it's a convincing argument to an extent, is that one, cost of employees might be a little bit higher because you're talking about delivery people that don't work on a tip system. So you have to pay the minimum wage. The company has to provide the vehicle. I think that's normal. Whereas in the US, I think it's normal for people to use their own vehicle. If the company in Japan is providing the vehicle, that means they have to pay for insurance. That means they have to pay for the gas. That means they have to pay for maintenance on the vehicle. So all that stuff is more expensive for the company in Japan. But if you're talking about a cheese pizza being one price and then you add one topping and it's double the price and they're both delivery pizzas, like the system does not make sense. And this previous argument does not apply.
Here's another chain I'm looking at their menu. It's not nearly as egregious, but the plain cheese large is 2,000 yen. And to get the American, which is literally just tomato sauce plus pepperoni, is 3,100 yen. So 1,100 yen to add pepperoni.
Yeah. Okay, so that is much more, reasonable compared to the one that you saw, but
it's not literally over double, but it's still much more of an increase than it should be.
Yes. And the thing is that, let's just say, so mainland US, let's just say that a large is about $15. Well, probably like a large one topping is about $15 at most places. But the thing is that it's totally normal to see like really good deals on pizza, right? Like you end up with like $15 for a large, but you also get like chicken wings. You also get a 2-liter Coke. You also get, like cinnamon, whatever, swirls, whatever they call them. Each place has their own thing. You get these combos sometimes for these coupons that you get more food than you need for a meal, but it's like absurdly cheap. And so when that is often like what is in our minds for as Americans, $10 large pizza at Papa John's. I don't know if they still do that, but they used to do that. For a large cheese pizza, $10, right? Like that used to be pretty common. Or like Little Caesars where you could get like $5 cheese pizza for a large. I know prices have increased a bit over the past 10 to 15 years, but it's still cheaper on the whole, especially with these coupons than Japan. Now, here's another thing though that really like baffles the mind. Talk about the other like local place, the place that you like that you go to.
So they're cheaper than this, but they have more expensive than American prices pizza. However, as I mentioned earlier, delivery is free. But if you don't deliver, if you go pick it up, you get a half price discount. I think it depends on the size. I think the mediums, it's like half price, and the larges, you just get like 1,000 yen off.
Yeah.
It's like the carry-out special, though. So delivery is free, but you get an enormous discount if it's not a delivery.
Yeah. And okay, so in the defense, I guess you could say of this place, I do see carry-out specials in the US as well, right? Because it's just easier for them. They don't have to coordinate a whole delivery thing. So it makes sense to charge a little bit less for that. So that's totally normal. The thing that just is so funny about this is that it can be as high as a 50% discount. That is so like perplexing, right? Like, and then you can't help but compare it to the other place where it's like you add a tomato and it's like double the price. Like, part of what is so perplexing about this is that there's no uniformity across like the pizza chains, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's not half. Oh, wait, no, it is half off. Which size is it? Okay, the M size is half off. The large is 30% off.
Okay. But that's huge.
Yeah, so it is actually 50% off. It says any number of pizzas, any pizza, M size, half off.
And so, like, again, we go back to the thing where running a delivery operation is more costly, more complicated. You need more people, et cetera, et cetera. So it does make sense that they do want to maybe charge a delivery fee of some kind. It appears that they're including that delivery fee already baked into the price. No pun intended. But
no pun was intended.
It was like halfway through. It's like, this is a good pun. So like, it makes sense, but the thing that doesn't make sense is, one, the lack of consistency across all the chains, and two, the way they do this and the exorbitant like prices that they tack onto these things. So you would figure that it was a uniform thing. Like the cheese pizza, like it starts at 3,000 yen and they add in like 500, 700 yen for the tomato. But no, it's like we're going to cut half off and add half. So it just doesn't make sense, right? And then the other like complex factor is that if you go to get a cheese pizza at just about any other restaurant, it's not going to be probably 2,000 yen. It'll probably be less than that. And if you go get like a tomato or a margarita or something like that at some other place, it's not going to be probably like almost 4,000 yen. So the argument of the base ingredients being more expensive, which sometimes you hear, is not enough to convince me that warrants these hikes in prices.
Yeah, not at all. I will point out that the local chain, I just looked at their menu, their basic plain cheese pizza is not drastically less expensive than their other pizzas.
Yeah.
So they're just like doing things well. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, like at least that system makes sense to me, right? Because I can understand like they want to totally like disencourage any delivery because they don't want to have to deal with it. So it makes sense. It's funny. 50%. But it makes sense. Yeah. But for the other plates, like add a tomato, it's like the delivery guy's like, nah, that adds too much weight to the bike. That's going to cost more money.
Double the price. You added a tomato.
Yeah. So I was reading an article in Japanese about why Japanese delivery pizza specifically, is so much more expensive. And I also read an American article about this. So it's kind of the same stuff that I've talked about. So the operation just costs more if you're running the delivery place because you need more employees. You need to be coordinating so that it gets there within 30 minutes to wherever the person, is ordering from, et cetera, et cetera. And then
Japan
also
famous for having more delivery places though than most countries.
No, see, well, I'm not sure, but bento places do delivery. Like that's
like
a
whole bunch of places do delivery.
Yeah, like curry places I know sometimes do delivery.
Yeah, sushi too, I think.
Yeah, sushi places sometimes do delivery.
And this is before like Uber Eats and stuff came about. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So now you can say
there's not really like infrastructure for it. It's just like a custom that existed, but
yeah, exactly. So
anyway, it doesn't seem like that would be a reason for the price to inflate so much. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and no, but then the same Japanese article explained how there are some places that have managed to cut costs by quite a bit. So it's not double the price; it's less than double the price. And they've done this by just being more efficient. Maybe they don't have an eat-in operation, so that they can just focus on the delivery operation. Maybe they don't operate the whole day. Maybe they cut some hours, non-peak hours. They use like kind of automation, and they find different ways to cut the cost. I assume that a lot of these American places are also doing that. Otherwise, the price would be higher if they weren't like automating some of the process. I mean, Domino's in these places, they have, frozen dough already. I think like the amount of preparation is actually quite minimal. They just kind of slap on the toppings and put it in the oven and it's ready to go within probably a couple minutes to put in the oven. So I don't know if they're like these super expensive places. Like this guy is using one of these super expensive tomatoes, and it's like one tomato that he has to finally cut.
Randoseru.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, so they're probably using super expensive, like homegrown tomatoes, and they deliver them in a Randoseru from Ishikawa. Yeah, in a Randoseru because apparently somebody told them that they're very good at keeping pizza warm.
Your A4 size pizza.
Yeah, your A4 size pizza. That's why they have to make them a little bit smaller in Japan. And
they have to be backpack sized.
Yeah, pizzas in Japan have to fit backpacks. That's a law. That's a law. Yeah, I think Emperor Taisho decided that. So there are operations in Japan that have managed to cut costs by being, just more efficient and managing find ways to cut the cost of operations. So then that just led me to think of this. Basically, if we really boil it down to, it comes down to two things. Japanese people are just willing to pay this amount, and Japanese pizza.
Like when you grow up in a culture like Randoseru, that's just what that's what you're used to. That's what you expect. So you don't think it's a high price. You think that's just the normal price.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is what it is. If you want that, you got to pay that. But And of course, the pizza places are more than happy to oblige. It's like, oh, you want to pay me like 2,000 yen for a tomato? Oh yeah, oh, here you go. But the other factor, which kind of allows for this to happen, is that the Japanese pizza delivery pizza specifically industry is just much less competitive than in the US because, well, one, there's less demand, and also there's just less locations. Japanese people on the whole eat way less pizza than the average American. So, in America, you might be talking about like low profit margins. You're talking about fast food style profit margins where they have to sell a lot of pizza to make, a little bit on each sale. Whereas it seems that the approach in Japan is much more profit margin per pizza so that they don't have to sell as much. Now, I was trying to figure out if I could find some specific concrete statistics to compare the Japanese delivery pizza industry to the American pizza industry. I wasn't able to find something really, really good, but I was able to figure out a few things. One, let's just begin with a measurement of the amount of cheese that the average Japanese and the average American eats. So
this is not pizza, this is just cheese?
This is just cheese in general, okay? First, we'll begin with cheese, because this is kind of the most solid statistic that I found. Apparently, the average Japanese person eats 2.8 kilograms of cheese per year. The average American eats an average of around 18 kilos per year.
Holy crap.
Now, this is actually much less than the average person from Denmark who eats, I think, 27 kilos of cheese per year.
Holy crap.
So guys, Denmark people, if you're listening, you guys love cheese. I mean, I like cheese too, but I guess I'm a long ways away from, wherever you guys are eating. So, I mean, Europe is known for eating, more cheese. And I guess, for the top 10 list that I found on a Japanese website, I think it was like all like European countries. Like America was not in the top 10.
I'm a little surprised by such that big difference. I guess I only have my own anecdotal experience, and I will admit I'm not that into cheese, even though I'm from America, which usually surprises people. I don't dislike it by any means, but
yeah,
I know some people who are like obsessed with it. Because I think my cheese consumption moving to Japan hasn't changed at all.
Yeah.
May have actually gone up slightly, because sometimes I'm surprised that like my bento hamburg has cheese inside of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I guess what I'm saying is cheese is not rare in Japan by any means.
Not at all. There's plenty of cheese to be found. Now, it does depend on the region. Sometimes you hear about these stories of like some super rural area where the nearest cheese that you can buy is like a 1 hour drive or something like that.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking here, like we went for gyudon last week, and I didn't order it, but I was tempted to get the like drenched in 4 cheeses gyudon.
Yeah. So, okay, just to kind of further illustrate the fact that cheese is easy to find in Japan, this tangent of research all derived from an article that I found from 2020 where Domino's Japan had released the ultra cheese pizza, ultra cheese, and it had 1 kilo of mozzarella cheese on it. So the marketing for this was, will Japanese people who only eat 2.8 kilograms of cheese per year be able to handle the ultra cheese?
It's so much cheese.
It's almost half of the year. Well, like a third almost, a little bit more than a third. But, the whole marketing was like, we're doing more cheese than most Japanese people eat. But again, this is an average. So there are people that eat quite a lot more, and there are people that maybe eat like almost no cheese in the year, right? So maybe some, grandpa, grandma in some rural Japan is not going to be eating cheese almost ever. So, this is a big, chunk of people. So yeah, like I said, 2.8 kilos per year versus 18. So that in and of itself tells you American people are eating a lot more cheese, so that's one thing. And then another statistic that I found, and this is a very dubious statistic. I think they made some mistakes on the amount of zeros here, but it was a Japanese article that said like the amount of money in the pizza, and they didn't specifically say delivery, so I'm not sure here, but
delivery seems like its own factor. As we mentioned, at restaurants, you can get pizza much, much cheaper. You can find it in grocery stores much cheaper.
Yeah.
It's a different culture, I guess, for the delivery stuff.
And like I think Saizeria has like 500 yen or less, pizza.
Yeah,
Now
I
it's
think
smaller.
like yeah.
It's like
It's designed to be like a 2-person thing, but it's designed to be like I
yeah,
actually had it like 2 weeks ago.
yeah. And they're
It's
quite
not the whole meal. It's
thin.
like one entree you can have with your meal that you could share with someone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's thin, and it's nothing fancy, but it's a cheap pizza.
Also,
I
because I
mean,
don't
but
know when else I'm gonna have the chance to say it, pizza bread, like the idea of toast with
oh
tomato
yeah,
sauce and cheese, I think
yeah.
is much, much, much more popular here than in the West.
Yes. Very common. I used to have that for breakfast and stuff. Like I used to buy that at the supermarket.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
it's common as a breakfast food, which surprised me when I first
yep.
heard about it.
Yeah. Like on a
Because the
thick piece of
Japanese
toast.
people, in case you didn't know, are shocked to find out donuts are a breakfast food.
Often, yeah.
But
I
then they
think
just
maybe
they
less
just
these
have
days,
pizza for
but yeah.
breakfast, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, when pizza's on a bagel, you can have pizza anytime, but they don't have it on a bagel. They have it on toast. Um,
Yeah, if it's on bread, anything's fine.
yeah. And then there's
You can
also
put a
pizza
donut on a
man.
piece of toast, and they'd be fine with it then.
Yeah. They also pizza man, which are like pizza buns,
Oh
like
yeah,
kind of like the pork buns, but instead there's like cheese and tomato inside. So there's various kind of pizza breadish things, but they're not like pizza, but they're basically they're not that far off from pizza.
yeah. I think
Um,
like in the West, lots of kids eat like bagel bite pizzas or
yeah,
whatever, or
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
with the pizza roll. So I'm trying to like Japan does have their equivalent of that, and it is
Exactly.
also very, very popular.
Exactly. So, but the statistic that I was saying was, it was a Japanese article, didn't say exactly from what year, but it said, in Japan, 3만, like, no, it was 3億6万yen, something like that, which is like
San okudoku.
wait, 3億6万円,
I just like
right?
the flow of that. San
6,
okudokuman.
no, 3億, sorry, 3億6千万円.
Okay.
So basically, if you were to convert that to dollars, it would be something like $3.6 million. So in the US, that is absurd. That there's no, it's not $3.6 million of
It's because the price is
anything.
just that low, man.
It's so cheap. No. Like delivery pizza is like $1 billion a year industry, I think. So no, that's absolutely wrong. I think maybe they got the conversion wrong, or they forgot to add some zeros or something. But the point is that they were saying that in American it's like 3.6 million versus like in Japan it was like 2 point something million dollars spent per year, like on the whole.
Can we assume the ratio is still set, even if the
Yeah,
overall value
that's
is
what I'm
wrong?
assuming. That's what I'm
Okay,
assuming. And so because I think they were talking
that
about delivery
sounds
pizza.
not bad.
So I think they were talking about delivery pizza because in the next sentence they say that now if you take into account the fact that Japanese delivery pizza is usually around double the price of American delivery pizza, then you end up with an assumption that the average Japanese consumes about 1/28th the amount of pizza the average American eats per year. Which
I'm suspicious of that.
I am suspicious of that too. I think that same
I
article
definitely
says,
think it's lower. I don't know if it's 1/28th lower.
yeah. I'm suspicious of that. But that same article then extrapolates, saying that if you can conclude that perhaps the average Japanese person eats about 600 grams of pizza per year.
Because maybe I'm just underestimating how much other Americans love pizza.
Yeah.
Where I lived, pizza was a once to twice a month kind of food, or people having this like 3 times a week, and I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I think I saw one statistic that the average American eats like 40 pizzas a year or something like that. There's 13% of Americans that eat pizza on a daily basis. Now that probably includes like frozen pizza as
Yeah.
well. So again, these statistics are all over the place, and it's hard to really say conclusively like Japanese people eat this much less than Americans. But I think there's no doubt that Japanese people eat less pizza, especially less delivery pizza than Americans. There's less delivery pizza places in Japan. And all that means is that there's less need for these pizza places to be competitive. And that combined with the fact that Japanese people are just fine with the fact that delivery pizza is so expensive on the whole results in this environment where these delivery pizza places can get away with charging more, even though they don't have to charge as much to make enough profit to still like be able to run the business and grow the business and do all the stuff that an American pizza place would have to do, right?
I'm still struggling with this 128. I think it has to. It does have to be specifically delivered because even izakaya, you can get pizza and they're not rare, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, you do see that. Or like, for example, like there's all you can eat pizza places in Japan. I mean, Shakey's.
Yeah.
There's probably other ones. I just know Shakey's, and that
Yeah,
I
I
don't
went to
remember.
one of those like 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've been to one, but those places were like actually quite cheap. Like they were some of the most affordable all you can eat places around. Now, it's very thin pizza. It's not like gourmet pizza or anything, but still the fact remains that it's cheap pizza. Like that exists in Japan. So the question comes back to like, so why is delivery pizza so expensive? Because the Japanese pizza industry can get away with it and there's just
Yeah, basically.
there's
Because
less
the tomatoes are
competition.
just that good. If you put one on
Yeah,
there, it's another
yeah.
2,000 yen.
They're grown in Japanese randoseru. They're grown inside gourmet
And they're grown inside the
randoseru.
Randoseru
Yeah.
and delivered in another Randoseru. You can't use the same Randoseru. That would be
Yeah.
tacky.
And so, yeah, Japanese people are used to it. And there's no like fierce competition to the same level that you get in the US, where it has motivated these companies to find ways to cut the costs and still be profitable to the same ratio. So that's my ultimate conclusion. You know, the pizza industry is smaller and they can get away with it. And by the way, I did come across the website, the Pizza Kyogikai, the Pizza Association. So apparently there's a pizza association in Japan. I don't know if they conspire to keep prices high, but that exists.
One thing I'll point out that I just thought of right now that might be interesting for people who don't know life in Japan. Growing up, I think if you, in America or in probably most Western places, if you ask like elementary to high school kids their favorite food, pizza will be a very, very common answer.
Yes.
And being an English teacher here, like, what is your favorite food? What is your favorite whatever is very common, like, warm up questions.
Mm-hmm.
In my 10 years teaching in Japan, no one has ever said pizza.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Like,
I
never.
don't remember that coming up much, if ever. Yeah.
I think honestly they just don't think of it because whenever pizza is mentioned, my students like it and want it.
Yeah.
But their
But
go to answer is usually like sushi, ramen, and if you're in Kansai, takoyaki a lot.
yeah. Well, the thing is that it's just, I mean, it's expected because like, you know, it's
Yeah.
just so accessible. It's just there. I mean, it's all great stuff. Like, I mean, sushi is one of my favorite foods. So I'm happy to answer that. But, I mean, pizza is also one of my favorite foods. So, it's just it's for example, like there are cafeterias in the US, you know, you go to the cafeteria, there are options to have pizza every single day if you want to.
That
like
is
in
true.
many
I forgot
cafeterias.
about that. That's
Yeah.
probably part of why the rate is so high. I was one of the people that thought school pizza was terrible and never had it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so yeah, there's the school pizza. And then in my high school, they would also sell like actual just Domino's. Like they would sell that per slice too. So that was absolutely normal. And you could get that every single day if you wanted to. So when it's such an integral part of your life and you see it every single day, I think that does ultimately influence you. And it's like, oh yeah, pizza is my favorite food. Like, but if it's less common, then maybe you're not going to answer that.
We also grew up in like the Ninja Turtles generation where pizza was like the cool food that was heavily aimed at kids, and that never really happened here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no cowabunga pizza.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true. Yeah. So, and I don't know, like the whole, like just jumping off of that, the bagel bites, that was totally that sort of like, you know, the cool kid after school, he comes home, skateboards, eats the bagel bites, you know, it's all a bunch of marketing too. So
yeah, I'm realizing how much they tried to like propaganda us for pizza when, especially our generation, because we're also like the Chuck E. Cheese generation.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. Then that goes back to my point of like how incredibly competitive the pizza industry is here in the US, right? They're bombarding you from everywhere to get their pizza.
Growing up, I think every friend's birthday party was pizza and
pizza
cake.
Party.
Like it was never anything else.
Yeah. I mean, it's
and I don't
easy,
think any of the kids here do that for their birthdays.
Yeah. Everybody likes it.
Food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know what? I totally, that is a good approach, Japan. I like that. You know, that is good. I absolutely love pizza, but
yeah, me too.
But I mean, it's not something that I would feel comfortable eating every single day of my life, even though I do have streaks every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with my now Japanese diet where I have pizza.
Yeah.
I don't know, once every 2 or 3 months.
Yes, 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 yeah. So yeah, so I think we pretty much solved the mystery. I would love to talk to a Japanese pizza delivery place like owner or something and really get the nitty gritty, but I think we've more or less figured it out. So
We find out
I'm
it's some
glad.
like Illuminati thing, and they're actually selling more pizzas in America and just keeping the prices high. Just brainwashing Randoseru something something.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You
So
heard it here first, guys.
the Japanese pizza Illuminati conspiracy. All right.
They're
So,
transmitting codes in the price differences from cheese to plus one topping.
oh man, it's like those numbers radio stations, you know? It's like,
Like, this one, if you get plus pepperoni, it's plus 1,800 yen. But
yes,
plus sausage is only 1,600 yen. This means the invasion plans are going smoothly.
yes, 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 yes. It could very well be that. Yeah, maybe we're totally overlooking that. So I don't know. All we know is that's the information that I was able to dig up. So that's the conclusion I got. So it's all combined. The tomatoes and the randoseru and the pizza. It's all a big circle of
Everything's
expensiveness.
connected, man. Everything.
Everything. Yep, yep. Number 23. 23. It's all 23. Uh, okay, so I there are certainly other, sometimes randomly expensive things, but I mean, if you guys want us to look into anything else, just send an email over to Ichimon at JapanKyo.com. Happy to do a little bit of research here or there, but again, for the most part, Japan is not absurdly expensive.
No, not at all.
Oh, and you can go to Costco and get like pizza for absolute like same prices in the US.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the same as the US prices. I went to Costco yesterday and like I think it's 180 yen for the hot dog and drink combo.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
The pizza
And
is I think like 300 a slice or something, but it's gigantic. It's the same size.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the same. I think they just freeze it and bring it over, and that's it. It's the same exact price. And it's
They don't
good. I
even
mean,
make it here. Like literally, they cook it in America, freeze it, and then just stick it in a Randoseru.
I yeah. I mean, when I was living in Japan, and I would crave just like decadent, just that nasty American pizza. Costco, that's where I would go.
I will throw out there, I think a lot of people have that attitude where they want American style pizza because almost everyone I know thinks in this area the best pizza is Costco.
Yeah.
And for some reason, people are terrified of Japanese pizza because, oh no, they have different toppings.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as someone who like just tried it, I think Japanese pizza is a lot better. Like I think Costco is the bottom tier pizza where I live.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's fine. Also, there's some really, really good, like high quality, like Italian style pizza. Like I went to a place in Tokyo where a guy trained in Italy came back. He has his own little shop in Tokyo and he hand makes each pizza. And it wasn't 4,000 yen per pizza. I mean, it was like personal pizzas, but I think it was probably like more like 2,000 yen per pizza. And that was some of the best.
Literally doing it by hand costs less than the big corporations.
Well, okay, so I wasn't in the kitchen watching him, but I'm pretty sure it's more like handmade than what you would get at a Japanese, like delivery pizza place.
Yeah, I imagine it's just like on a conveyor belt or something.
Yeah. So, but my point is that
pizza.
But my point is that this high quality stuff, good ingredients, mostly handmade by like an artisan, just damn good pizza, and it's affordable. And it's some of the best pizza that I've had, was in Japan. So,
but if you asked him to deliver it, it's plus 9,000 yen.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's like, oh, can I get an extra tomato? It's like, oh, that's $200 more. Sorry.
I think that really is the whole thing because I don't remember any place actually having a delivery charge. It's just incredibly expensive pizza, but you can have it free. Yeah.
Or 50% off if you go pick it up.
Yeah, okay. 50% off if you pick it up.
Okay. People are tired. Like, all right, we get the point with the pizza. Yes. All right. So there's perfectly good pizza, reasonably priced in Japan. Just maybe, avoid the delivery unless you want to pay too much. Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.
See you. Goodbye.